8:37 on WMAL. I'm Larry O'Connor alongside Brian Wilson, and joining us right now is the Republican National Committee's chairman, Reince Priebus, just hours after announcing that Cleveland, Ohio, will host the 2016 GOP convention. Mr. Priebus, Mr. Chairman, thanks for joining us this morning.
Hey, good morning, Larry. Hi, Brian.
Hey. So Cleveland, huh? A lot of people were a little surprised at that announcement.
Yeah, but when you think about it for about 2 minutes, it makes a lot of sense. Obviously, we wanted to make sure at the RNC that the business side of a convention was going to make a lot of sense, and that means transportation more than anything nowadays, and hotels and the arenas. And then ultimately, because you need all the money to back it up, that the host committee can actually get this done. And you know, these host committees on both sides of the aisle, think about what they have to do. They have to basically say, we will raise $60 million, and we have no say over how it's going to be spent. Here it is. And that's basically what they're bidding on. Obviously, there's a lot more money coming into these places than the $60 million. But you have to make sure that the people that you're betting on can get that done. And so what we've done differently at the RNC, and it's something that we have not done before, and I would assume that the DNC now is going to try to do the same thing, is we've made sure that these host committees have a massive amount of money already committed to before we pick them. And then we want to make sure that there are guarantees in place to make sure that the money is going to be raised. And Cleveland met all those standards.
I'm not among those who is critical of the choice, but I mean, Dallas has transportation. It's got hotels. Last time I checked, there was a lot of money in Dallas,
and that state is a Republican,
and it's a red state.
Yeah.
So why go to blue state Ohio? Because you know everybody says that there is no sort of after effect, that we never have ever seen it, where you hold a convention in a blue state and then that state votes red.
Well, for one thing, I think what I'm trying to make clear is that on the business side, they're very comparable, and we appreciate the people in Dallas, and they actually did a fabulous job. And you're right, they hit all the boxes as well, and then some. But in the end, with all things being fairly equal, at the end, then the other things come into play, and certainly the politics do come into play. And I get the fact that the history shows that at the end of the day, where you have the convention doesn't mean you're going to win the state. However, I do think that with 2 years of proper planning and trying to parlay the host city into the politics, I think there can be a benefit that we can try to fully realize. The other thing is that there is so much appreciation and enthusiasm in Cleveland. I mean, it is totally over the top in the entire state of Ohio, that I do think there's going to be some tangential benefit to us in having the convention there. And lastly, it's a beautiful city. I mean, it really, I did the same thing you're doing in your mind. When I went there, I thought, well, I'm not sure about Cleveland. And then I got there, and I got to tell you, on the lake, it was really, really nice.
Yeah, I agree with you. Last time I was there, I said, wow, they've really done a nice job with their downtown area. It's a really pleasant city.
Well, let's stick with the geography of the politics here. Setting aside the question of whether going to Ohio means that you've got a better chance of winning Ohio in 2016. Listen, you're a Midwestern guy, Reince Priebus, from Wisconsin. Look at the names of that have been floated for the 2016 nomination, all coming out of that Midwest region. Your own governor there in Wisconsin, Scott Walker. Paul Ryan, of course, is a contender, the VP pick last time around. You've got Governor Pence in Indiana. You've got Governor Kasich in Ohio. You've got Senator Portman in Ohio. Is the RNC sort of sending a signal here that the secret to the success for the party in 2016 lies in the Midwest region?
I don't know if the GOP is sending that signal, but I've sent the signal myself that I think that we've got to compete in the Midwest, and we've got to win in the Midwest, and I think we've got to believe in the Midwest. And if we don't do that, I don't see how you win the White House. We've got a situation here where we've got a party that doesn't lose a midterm and has a hard time winning a presidential. And that, you look at all those states you just mentioned. I mean, you have pure Republican domination in every one of those states, and I'd add Michigan to that list. I mean, you go look at a map of those states we just talked about and tell me, other than a few congressional districts, where is it that the Republican Party isn't winning? Nowhere. We win everywhere in those places, except in most of those states we haven't won a presidential since 1988, in my state, 1984. And I think that it requires our party to double down on growing the party and reaching out on a long-term basis. And in the case of Ohio, we've already and we don't have a Senate race there, and there's not a whole lot of, there's one congressional real competition there. It's rolling. But we still have over 20-some full-time offices in Ohio, and we're going to be there for 4 straight years. So going to Cleveland is sort of another recommitment to the fact that we're going to have to stop being a party that shows up in presidential years about 4 months before an election. It's a losing strategy.
All right, so that's 2016. We got these little thing called the midterms coming up.
Yep.
So I know you're focused very much on, taking back the Senate. How is that looking?
I think it looks very good, and I think that we've got ourselves in a place where once we get to September, we're already looking at West Virginia, South Dakota, Montana, by all counts, looking to be in fantastic shape. And then after that, you've got to go look to Arkansas, you look at North Carolina, Louisiana, but now, you've got Iowa coming on the map with Joni Ernst getting very close within the margin of error. And I won't keep going through all the different states, but there's about 4 or 5 others there next that look like they're going to be competitive. So you've got to pick up another 3 seats in that bunch. And, I think if you look at the president's numbers, you look at where people are seeing the direction of our country, and it looks very good for Republicans beating Democrats in Republican states, by the way.
And while we're still focusing on, I want to go back to 2016 now just a little bit, because I know that you guys have suggested that the convention is probably going to be earlier in the summer. Have you committed to that? Will it be June or July, as you've suggested?
Yeah, I think we've committed it to the point of, in a couple different committees, saying that the start date's going to be either the June 27th start or the July 18th start.
And are you planning?
There's some logistical problems with the late June start, and that has to do with the NBA. And it turns out.
Well, you don't have to worry about the Cavaliers, Reince Priebus. Come on.
However, this may be the first time in the history of national parties that NBA free agency may have a determining factor on the start date of a convention.
Are you suggesting that we could be looking at our Republican nominee for president as LeBron James?
No, I'm suggesting that if LeBron James gets drafted, gets signed by Cleveland again, it certainly would give a few people a little bit more concern about that June date.
It's all right. Ted Leonsis is going to surprise everyone and sign him for the Wizards. We're all set, Reince.
well, Mr. Chairman, thank you very much. We greatly appreciate you here this morning. Always a pleasure.
You bet. Thanks, guys.